Hello, Linda. Welcome to the pod.
Yes, thank you.
I'm so glad that you're here.
Yeah, me too. And on this special location, right?
I know. For those of you who cannot see us, we are currently sitting beautiful in Malaga, in the hills of Malaga, in the middle of nowhere, really.
Yeah, and we have a swimming pool right behind us where we're probably gonna jump in after this.
And we're on retreat here. It's Linda's second time.
Yes.
And yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It's day 3, I think, right now already.
Yeah. And we thought to do it here because we live so far away from each other. I live all the way up north in the Netherlands and you live all the way in Belgium. So
we thought, why not do it here while we're nice and relaxed, detoxing from caffeine.
Oh my God, yeah, yesterday.
Both about to get our period.
Oh yeah, that's true as well. Yeah, and yesterday I had such a headache from the caffeine, how to say, detox.
Yeah, caffeine talk.
I feel better now.
You feel better?
Yes, I'm happy.
I must say I'm feeling it too.
Yeah? Yeah.
All right, so Linda, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Who are you? Where are you from? What do you do?
It's so funny because this is really like work related and we're here on this retreat, like totally not working, not doing, well, at least for you, it's of course it's a little bit of job and for me a little bit too. But so I started making online content when I was 15 years old. It was 2010. No one really knew what vlogging was, what content creation was, and especially online, there weren't a lot of other people doing this. So I started that, and that's like 13 years ago. I'm 28 years old right now. And now my thing is really talking about or breaking the taboo around sexuality, feminism, nudity, and mostly female sexuality, because I think that there's so little awareness around the female body, and it makes sense because also in the medical world we've been researching male bodies mostly, and all these kind of examples makes it that our female bodies are kind of left behind in all this. So all the genitals and all this, our sexual organs, we only know, for example, for I think like 20 or 25 years how the clitoris really looks like.
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
Yeah, so all this stuff, I'm making content about it. I'm also just sharing my life on Instagram. I'm an influencer on Instagram, but these things are the main like kind of red line in my online career. Yeah, so that's who I am and what I do.
I love that. And you live in the Netherlands?
Yes, I live in Groningen, but I really feel, it feels more like I'm living in Amsterdam, and I'm moving there as well. So my life is really in Amsterdam, and that's where it all happens, of course.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
And so did you always have an interest in sexuality and relationships and feminism, or did it kind of grow as you grew older, or where did that start?
I think that I really felt from the age of 12, I think that I was more than other people from my age. I was more interested in sexuality and interested in exploring my body. And I really felt weird because, of course, you're a young girl, you're with other classmates, and you really have the feeling that you're the only one doing that or really discovering those things. So for me, I had this idea that for me it was always already a topic. And then also when I was 12, I was starting to struggle. I started struggling with my sexual seksuele geaardheid, sexual orientation. And so that's when I actually discovered that I was bisexual, but then I felt so insecure about it. So during my teenage years, during high school, I kind of pushed that away. And then when I was 18, I finally really came out of the closet as bisexual. So for me, it was my whole teenage years, my years as a teenager, it was a topic. Yeah. And then when I was 18, 19, 20 years old, I discovered, okay, I am not the only one with these struggles. I was already making these YouTube videos online. So I was like, okay, let's share my story. Yeah. Let's come out of the closet on YouTube for thousands of people, telling my story. And I really believe that for other younger girls, it was really recognizable. They could really identify themselves because they saw my video and they were like, oh my God, yes, I'm not the only one. Yeah.
People always think they're alone or the only one thinking something.
And especially with sexual struggles, because there's such a taboo on them and we feel so much shame. And yeah, and of course shame is a really human feeling. It's totally normal that we feel ashamed sometimes, but sometimes it's such a, it's so sad that we have to be ashamed about these things. So that's when I started discussing these things. And so I believe I was maybe, compared to other classmates, more into this topic already because of my own insecurities. I was struggling with it, but then...
And it impacted your own mental health, and that's why you kind of...
Yeah, because all the insecurities I felt, or at least, I mean, I always say that your sexuality, and everyone has their own sexuality, is such a big part of your identity. Yeah. So who you are, what you like, what you prefer, and what you don't like, it all also, there's a big part of that has to do with sexuality. And there is a whole... Of course, like the sex, like really the act of having sex is just one little part of this whole big thing that is called your sexuality. Yeah. So that's what made it so interesting for me, and also as a woman speaking openly about that. And I was starting to make these videos about me coming out of the closet, but then also about puberty and all the struggles in that. And then I took it a step further and I was talking about porn and masturbation, because I really believe that masturbation is so healthy, and we really learn as women that it's not, like, you shouldn't do that because it's not classy, or it's dirty or whatever. And you hear young boys talking about it all the time because it's cool to do it, and that
and it's such a big part of getting to know yourself, right? Know what you like, know what you don't like, and just the act of orgasming is so healthy just physically as well.
And I can imagine people hearing this and thinking, but okay, I mean, it's obvious that women do like sex or whatever, but there is still a big orgasm gap, for example. Have you heard about that orgasm gap?
Tell us some more about it. So
it means that during sexual intercourse, that men obviously orgasm way more. Like I think it's like 95% of the times, compared to, I'm not sure, but I think 68% of women do orgasm. Yeah. Compared to lesbian women, it's 85%. Okay. Yeah, so that's a big gap. Yeah. And it all has to do with the way that we look at penetration sex, for example. We really focus too much on only this penetration sex because it's such of this male gaze. It's coming out of this male gaze, I think. So all these things, it all starts with knowledge and talking about it, and I think that's really my purpose. Starting the conversation and
helping people feel comfortable opening up to each other and asking the questions. And
exactly, and feeling comfortable in their bodies.
I love that. So you're very like a public online person, right? A lot of people send you questions, I'm sure. Is there like certain questions that come up more than others? What are people struggling with mostly? Do you have any? Yeah. And by the way, could I borrow your sunglasses? I'm struggling.
Yeah, do that. I saw it already. Yeah. Oh, they really suit you. They're super nice. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I think the main question I get is about so many different things, but mostly the purpose of the question is always comes to, am I normal? People always want to know, is this normal? Is that normal? So, for example, if it comes to your body, people ask me, for example, my inner labia, is labia the real English pronunciation? You know what I mean, right? Yeah. The inner labia, my inner labia are bigger or longer than my outer labia. Is that normal? Because I see this picture perfect in porn, and so a lot of women feel insecure about that, and that's so hard because we see all these images in porn, but also just in normal movies of how sex should be, how we have this idea of sex, but that's actually what media makes it look like, I think. So a lot of questions about that, and people just want to know how, for example, how or I want to let my body hair grow, but I have the feeling that my boyfriend wouldn't accept this or something, and then I really want to let these girls know that you should always make, like, it's your body, you can make your decisions, you shouldn't follow a certain kind of beauty ideal or and all these things.
I'm sure it's really hard because, you know, we grow up in a society and it's so normal and it's pre-written, and I think most women or humans don't even realize that they're adhering to this certain norm. And then the whole journey of first becoming aware and then, you know, being like, okay, I don't have to do this. Maybe I can do it my own way, whether it's, you know, within sex or relationships or physical stuff like growing body hair or like swimming topless. That's something that I love watching your videos about always, because even that, it's something that used to be much more normal. But for some reason today it's much more like, ooh, I'm going to cover myself.
It looks like we're getting more prudish. Yeah. And I think that has a lot to do with social media as well. And
the fact that you could be filmed anywhere, I guess also, but it's a whole shift of identity, like you called it, right? Like it's such a big part of identity, sexuality. So if something changes in it, that's so scary, I'm sure, for some people. So do you have any tips on how to deal with that fear if someone feels like, okay, maybe I think I am bi or gay, or maybe I want to try a threesome, but I don't know how to start that conversation. Do you have any tips on how to deal with that fear?
Well, of course, it all starts with really accepting yourself first, but it always helps to talk to other people. But I can imagine that that's so, I mean, that's really scary to do. So, but I mean, I can say accept yourself, and I mean, that's so easy to say, but already hearing this and listening to these type of podcasts, I believe that then you're already more conscious about yourself. You're asking yourself questions. Why am I doing this? Why am I shaving my armpits? Or why am I doing this or that? And but
just thinking about it already is a big...
And then talking to like-minded people, I believe that for me at least, I found people on the internet who were like-minded, and I discovered that I wasn't alone, and being vulnerable really encourages other people to be vulnerable. And of course, if that has to start with you, that's fucking scary. And I had the same, because I was so insecure as a teenager, and I shaved my armpits every day, even when there was no hair to see, and because I was so insecure, and I wore these double push-up bras because I was so insecure about my small breasts. And now I never wear bras again. I don't even own a bra. So that's how it can change. And of course it's age and getting older and really accepting yourself more. But when you're younger,
there's a lot of insecurity when you're younger. I always look back at those teenage years with so much love and like, oh, well, poor you.
And
but also like it's such a path of journey and growing up and
so for me it really feels like it's very hard to give advice to my younger self in other than just let it be. And if you are insecure about something, then it's still fine, I guess. But also, I think just knowing that there's not one way to do stuff. Also, there's not one way to do sex. There are so many different ways that you can have sex. It's not only this penetration sex. So for me, in my personal life, for example, I think 50% of the times I have penetration sex with my boyfriend, and then the other 50% are other forms of sex, like, of course, oral sex and everything, but just kissing and really cuddling can already feel like sex. I mean, you can... So there's so many different types, and also in terms of monogamy, for example, there are so many different options to form a relationship, a love relationship. And since I discovered all these things, it's also hard because now I know all these things. You cannot go back to not knowing, so I don't really know how. Almost don't know how I felt when I didn't know all this, but and still there are so many things I don't know, of course, but.
There's so many options, which is really nice.
And accepting everyone in their own... but I think it's important to consciously choose, and especially as a woman, to know that you're just as equal as men, and you can really step up for yourself and not being led by, like, I don't know. What I'm trying to say, I think, is that a lot of women are maybe pleasers also during sex, and it's important to come up for yourself, for your orgasm also. So I think those things, and still that's also very easy to say, but if you learn more about your body and you really can explain it to your bed partner, for example. So what I said at the beginning of the for example, the clitoris being way bigger than just this little pea, that it has also these I don't know, the zwellichamen,
I'm not sure what that is in English, but yeah.
It's actually kind of the same as male genitals. So, and if you know all this and how that works, you can explain it so much better to your bed partners, and that just the penetration sex won't do the job for you, because only like 20 or 30% of women can orgasm through only penetration sex only. So, but we get also, this is also this idea we get from movies and porn that you should be able to orgasm through penetration.
There's not one way.
No.
And I guess when I talk to my clients and people who I work with, a big part of what people are struggling with is people pleasing in general.
Yeah, in general.
In life, right? Setting boundaries, saying no, finding the confidence to actually listen and take a moment. What do I really want? What do I have energy for? And then verbalizing that. And if you take that within a sexuality standpoint, like what you were talking about, it's so important to, first of all, know what you want. Because if you don't know what you want, if you don't know what you like, how are you going to be able to vocalize that to that partner?
Exactly.
And then you can't blame them if it doesn't feel good or if you don't feel fulfilled.
Yeah, I didn't even know this until I was 22, I think. And because that's the part of my life that I was starting to have sex with a lot of different people. I learned so much about myself while being in my slut period.
Hoe season.
Yeah, hoe season. Yeah, and
we should all have a hoe season.
Yes,
multiple. I think I'm in my third hoe season right now.
Oh my god! I think
TMI.
I'm starting. Oh, I love that though. I believe that. I think I'm starting my second kind of
second awakening.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, but and even if you don't have this this urge to do this, I mean, I talk to so many people who are so happy with their one monogamous relationship. They they don't have sex with anyone else,
and you can keep exploring and learning so much in that one relationship, right? With that one partner.
Yeah. So. Where was I going with this?
I think about like that we have to know and think about it and observe, and whether it's with multiple partners, or with that one person, that it's so important to.
And learning what you like. And yeah, so until I was 22, I didn't even know, and I couldn't really vocalize that because you can maybe know, but then really speaking up about it's so fucking scary. It's so scary to tell your bed partner to say, oh, a little bit more to the left, a little bit more to the right. That's so fucking scary.
Yeah, can you do that here, or can you do a little less of that, or can you use a little less tongue? Like, you never know how the other person is going to react.
No. But I also feel like men can really ask more, because it's not only on us, of course. I mean, of course we should come up, speak up for ourselves, but still also, the partner should give us more
the option to, the platform to speak out, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I feel like there's definitely a big shift also within the male community. I feel like that they are, as every time I am with someone like that, I was so surprised in the beginning, because I'm like, wow, like, is this okay? Is that okay? Do you like this? Do you like that? And I'm like, that feels really nice and safe, actually, because I think a lot of people think, oh, but it's going to take us out of the moment, but not at all. Actually, it can feel very vulnerable and intimate and connecting. And
and there is this quote that's called "Consent is sexy." Because people feel like, also when you're in out clubbing and you want to kiss someone, always ask. And people feel like that's not sexy, but it's actually the opposite to do so. And then you're also sure about the other person also wanting to kiss. And yeah, I think that makes it so much more. I mean, I cannot imagine like having sex with someone where you're not sure about if they want it too. So that's why you should always speak about those things and ask it.
And same for, I mean, of course, if this is a woman and a man situation, it could be all situations, but also from the women, like asking like, oh, do you like this? Is this okay? Is that okay?
These examples, when I had sex with other women, my lesbian sex experiences were such a big difference because there was already like the standard to always ask, to always, to really, really talk about it. So
and then if you think, or talking about like mental health, because this podcast, I love talking to people about mental health. Like, how are you feeling? What can you do to make yourself feel better if you're struggling with anxiety or overwhelm? I always talk about this wellness toolbox. So everyone has a different toolbox with different things, but a few basics in there are always movement, always breathing, always, self-reflection. But that movement can be different types of movement. For some people that's CrossFit, for other people that's running or doing yoga. But a big part in that toolbox is also intimacy, relationships, and sexuality, right? So if someone maybe is feeling a little anxious or depressed or sitting at home and they're maybe not sure, why am I feeling this way? Could it maybe be I would say it might be really interesting to look at your relationship. First of all, if you're in a relationship, are you happy? Is something missing there? How is your sex life? Can you talk to your partner about that? But also, if you're not in a relationship, I think there's a big step for this, talking about women specifically, because most of our listeners are women, a big step in that dating world. Like, how do I put myself out there? Yeah, just a lot of fear. Like, what if the date isn't fun? What if, I don't know, or like, should I have sex on the first date or not? Like, all these questions they're asking themselves. And that also then separate with, are you actually by yourself doing things for yourself? Like, are you taking time to take yourself on a solo date? Are you having sex with yourself? Like, all those things. I think a lot of people don't really connect that with, oh, I can put that in my wellness toolbox for my mental health, for my physical health.
And also, really, it all starts with exploring all these things with yourself. So if you can really be happy with yourself, then from that starting point, you can have really sustainable relationships with other people. So for me, I'm very happy that my first love relationship started when I was 23. Before that, I could go through all these processes, really discovering myself, learning what I like, and mostly on a sexual, but still now in this relationship, I have to pay attention to my connection with myself. But really, I can give some specific advice, like really some homework that people can do.
We love homework.
So if you are like, oh no, masturbation, I don't like that, I feel so ashamed about it, don't
know where to start.
So I think it all starts with, a lot of women don't even know what their vulva looks like, for example. So of course it's logical, because a penis, it sticks out of the body, it's easy,
you can't really miss it.
Exactly. And young boys already make this connection with their genitals because they have to hold it in their hands while they're peeing and everything. For us, it's way more hidden. So we really have to look with a mirror to really see what it all looks like. And it can be so surprising. I think I did this for the first time when I was 14 years old. I think when I started shaving, and I was so struggling with a mirror, and there was such a struggle. And then a few years later, in my grown-up ages, I also looked sometimes, and it can feel so scary, because also I know that there's some women even have struggles with even looking in the mirror, even to their whole body. So it can be very confronting, but it all starts there, because if you don't even know what it all looks like, what all the parts are, and what it all feels like, I can definitely recommend, just even if you're not horny or whatever, just do it as a medical consult with yourself. Take some lube, take a mirror, and look and touch and just feel. I think there are also some guided meditation-ish kind of things that you can follow to really discover your body. So that's a really specific tip. And then also, if you just really practice with, if you have finally discovered what you like and what you want, you can really practice by just speaking it out when you're by yourself. So all these sentences like, oh, I would like that you finger me, or whatever, that you really speak, because it's, if you, for me it's easier in Dutch, all those words that I like. For example, a lot of people already have so many struggles with even speaking all these words.
Yeah.
So all these sex related words. So yeah, if you
Practicing saying it out loud.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And also saying no, and also maybe imagining a situation where someone might go over your boundaries, and then imagining how you would say no, or how you would set your boundaries.
And I also think if you practice always coming from a place of love, like when you say no, it can still be no with a lot of love, right? Like it doesn't have to mean like, whoa.
No,
I mean, depending on the situation, but
true. And also learning to say yes.
Yeah.
Because saying no is also about saying yes. So you should know when it's too much, but also when you want more of something. And speaking those things.
Not this, but do that instead.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that can be more constructive, I think. Yeah.
So I follow you, of course, on Instagram, and I see that you have a very a really nice routine and ritual, like in your day-to-day life. Like you go cold plunging in the morning quite often. You are conscious about movement and your own mental health. So what's something, or can you maybe take us through your morning routine, or what's something that you feel like, ooh, this just makes me feel so much better mentally and physically, and helps me show up in the day with all the energy that I want to bring to the day?
I love my morning routine. So it really depends, because I really started learning to not be as strict for myself. So when I really dove into all these theory about morning routines and everything, I wanted to do everything. I wanted to journal, I wanted to do yoga, I wanted to do the cold plunges and everything. But now I discovered, okay, I just choose one thing to do, and even if that is just getting up early and doing something, for example, packing out the dishwasher or something, but then something mindful. And other times it's going for a swim or a walk or something more intense, like a run. But it's always something that I want to do instead of what I have to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
I like that. I think when people start building routines, they do think like, let me do all of this.
Yeah.
But it was really nice when no, I set my time aside for the routine. I plan that in.
It's just taking this time for yourself.
Yeah. I can then drop in and see, what do I actually need today?
Yeah. And if that is a big masturbation session in the morning, that's also fine. Yes. I mean, it can also be part of your morning routine, and
very healthy.
Yeah. And of course, these things happen mostly spontaneously, I think, but that's still... And for me, that's sometimes hard because, for example, talking about morning sex, because I can be kind of focused on my morning routine, and then when this comes in spontaneously, and then after that, I'm like, oh no,
it threw me off rail.
My routine is gone. But that's also fine. I mean, these spontaneous things should also can also happen.
That is true. That's hard. Actually, when I was in a relationship, that was one of the things we would have most of our discussions about, was our morning, because I also love to have my own time in the morning. But my partner would always be like, yeah, but I never wake up with you. You're always gone when I wake up. But I was like, yeah, but I need that. It was a very interesting discussion, and we were able to really communicate about it, but it stayed a struggle. So that's something that even in the future, with new relationships in the future, that I will really have to think about, like, okay, how can I make space for connection? Because that's also so healthy and so good for you, while still keeping space for my own time and my self-care. And that's such a hard balance, right?
Yes, especially if you live together. I've been living together already for 4 years, and this was a struggle as well. Just your routine, matching your routine, and he is really an evening person. He's starting to get a morning person, so I'm happy with that, but also not, because I like my alone time in the morning, but still he likes, if he wakes up early, he still likes to lay in bed for like an hour or something. So, and I get out right away. And but if you can, sometimes it's hard, and it all has to do with this expectations management, I think. what are your expectations from each other in the morning,
and finding some flexibility and adaptability within the structure that works for you, right? Because then my ex-partner would say like, yeah, but I'll never go with you on your morning runs and your mornings this, and I feel so bad about that. And I'm like, no, I don't want you to come. I want to go alone. Exactly. But it was very hard for him to understand in the beginning. So it's really communicating, right? And keep checking in with each other and with yourself and like all those things. But it's a constant journey. I think a lot of times people think, once I have it all figured out, it's done. But it's not. It changes with every season, with every, week of your own cycle that you're in, with every season in the year, with every...
the menstruation cycle. Of course, that has so much... we didn't even spoke about that.
That's also so interesting, like, especially when it comes to sexuality. Like,
yeah, but you should talk to someone for your podcast with someone who is a hormonal specialist or something about menstruation cycles, because that's so interesting. And has so much influence on our bodies, on our daily lives.
We just did a workshop for my online course with a hormone expert, and it was very much the basics of like the seasons, what you can expect. But it's true, I'm really trying to practice more and more to live within that season, and it helps me to feel when I wake up feeling a little less energized, instead of being like, why am I feeling like this? And I'm like, oh yeah, it's normal. I'm in my luteal phase. I'm getting ready to menstruate. Like, it's normal that I'm low energy. I don't have to push myself. I shouldn't feel bad about it. Or when I'm in my ovulation phase, it's normal that I feel horny all the time. Like, it's not that I'm going to cheat on my boyfriend. It's just like part of that, like knowing all these. That's really interesting.
It has so much. And to come back to this whole, like the whole circle, like that, your sexual well-being, of course, it has so much influence on your mental health as well. Because I have had my periods. Of course, I speak a lot about sex, and it's my job, and it's really became my identity that I'm this girl who talks about sex online. But then I had these periods where I didn't really feel my sexuality. I didn't feel that much arousal anymore, and I really felt so sad about that. But also because it's such a big contrast with because it was my identity, and it is still. And then if you don't feel like that, then it can be so confusing. So and that comes back to we have this image of sex and how society and
it always has to be like this, or it's not normal if it's like that. Well, it's true, it fluctuates, right? Especially when you're in a long-term relationship, for me it was really hard ultimately to then still find that arousal and that excitement and that.
Exactly. And I think a lot of people connect their quality of their relationship or of their sex life to how many times you have sex with each other. But I think there were some numbers about this many years ago where like 2 or 3 times a week should be normal or average.
But that's way too much. Not too much.
I mean, if it is okay if you have that, but for me it would be more like 2 or 3 times a month. And I think a lot of people, when they do these kind of questionnaires or whatever, they just give the answers that is socially accepted, and not really. And I don't know where this idea comes from, but it got me really insecure because this is my first relationship ever, and then we started to live together, and all of a sudden have less sex. But then when we had sex, it was like the quality, of course, is way more important than the quantity. So that's what I'm trying to say,
It's true. No, I was also very insecure about that number when I started living together. And then I talked to a friend who is a sex therapist, and she's like, no, like every 10 days is more of the real average. And I was like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes total sense. And then still, it shouldn't be penetration sex all the time. Because I could also think, oh no, I only gave him a blowjob that wasn't real sex. But still, it's real sex. You can still count that. And so interesting.
Oh, I love having this type of chat with you. It's so fun. Is there any last words of wisdom that you would give the girl back home who's listening to this podcast on her walk or while doing the dishes about how to get maybe more in touch with her sexuality?
Yeah, and then especially if you have a partner or not, it doesn't really matter, because it's all about the sexual relationship you have with yourself. And I mean, if you don't feel that you want to dive more into that, that's totally fine. I mean, we have been, like, the whole society looks like we're obsessed with sex. I mean, of course, sex is a fun topic to talk about. But if you don't have these sexual feelings all the time, or you want to dive into your own sexuality, that's totally fine. But if you do, there's one book that really changed. But I read this 5 years ago, and I'm rereading it. It's called "Come as You Are" by Emily Nagoski. Oh my God! It really explains how libido isn't really a thing. How we all have sexual breaks and sexual gaspedalen,
gas pedals or accelerators.
Sexual accelerators and sexual breaks, and these are two mechanisms in our bodies that are constantly working. And if you maybe have a very sensitive break, but also a very or just a normal or very sensitive gas pedal, then these things can really work well. This it's hard to explain, but in this book, it's all about the female arousability and how female how this all works in our body when we get horny, what we need for that to happen, and also compared to male bodies, because there isn't even that much of a difference. We all are built from the same body parts, but it's just adjusted a little bit differently. Yeah. And that's interesting to keep in mind, because actually we do look more alike than we think.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
And it's all so much in the head as well, right?
Yeah. Oh my God, your brain is your biggest sex organ. So sometimes you can be very, very horny in your head, but then not getting wet, and the other way around. And so that those things don't really always work together. But then still, your fantasies and everything that happens in your brain has so much influence on your how you're being able to get aroused and everything. Yeah.
Okay, so Come As You Are, the book.
Yes.
Love that. Thank you for all the other tips. I loved this conversation. I could keep talking.
Yeah, me too.
Because I'm sure if you talk about like fantasies, like there must be so many people that are like, is it normal that I'm fantasizing about this? Does that mean I want it in real life? Like,
but this is interesting about fantasies. The one thing you should know, if you're fantasizing about something, it doesn't mean that you wanted that in real life.
You don't need to go and have a gangbang in real life.
Exactly. Yeah, but I mean, I have these fantasies, but I do never want it to happen.
All right, I could keep talking to you about everything, like talking about fantasies, because I'm sure there's people listening thinking like, is this normal? Is this not normal? And all that stuff. But for now, let's wrap it up, because we've been chatting for a while. So Linda, where can people find you? How can people read your book, work with you? Give us all the quick information.
I didn't even mention my own book. So, but my book is only in Dutch though. But so my name is Linda De Munck, and if you Google me, you'll find all about me. I'm sure you'll put my Instagram link, and I also do TikTok actually. I'm making some Instagram posts about this retreat as well. So I'm also just sharing my daily life, and sometimes I discuss some sexual topics. So
I'll put everything in the show notes.
Yes, you'll find it there.
For my Dutch listeners, what's your book called?
It's called Seksleven. Okay, Seksleven, yeah. And it's about my sexual life from my first orgasm when I was 12 until my relationship and living together. Yeah, and everything that happened in between.
Great. Yeah. I love that. Thank you so much for chatting with me.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. And see you soon. Hopefully next year at the retreat.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Bye, guys. Thank you for listening at home, and have a beautiful rest of your day.
Bye.